Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Yes, you can stop fighting with people and sit down. I had to break up a fight between Suzanne and Rebecca. Seriously, I don't know. I'm pretty sure somebody was about to hit one another when I said, ladies, stop fighting. Well, I know I defended her from you hitting her, but But anyhow. So as if you're here at the 8:30, you know this, but Brother DeAndre's truck broke down, and so we're actually I got to talk with him after the morning service, but we might. He's in Virginia, and so he can't even get anybody to look at the truck till tomorrow, and we don't even know what's wrong with it. It's supposed to have just been fixed. Obviously, it's not. And it's a diesel, so it's not as, you got to find the right people to look at it. So we may end up pushing the meeting out to later this month. He's got an open time, so I got to talk with him after service. I will let you know as soon as I know. But nonetheless, you're stuck with me today, and had a really great last 36 hours of trying to get ready for this morning. And so as I told the 8:30, if my messages or lessons stink, it's Brother Jake's fault, all right? And so, because I was not prepared to be preaching today, and so I got my Sunday morning message. I got done yesterday early when I knew there might be a problem, and then last night did Sunday school, and this afternoon I'm working on my Sunday night message. So real hot off the press, all right? This is all fresh from Jesus, okay? But anyhow, we are going to pick up where we were in our Sunday school lesson. I did add a little bit more to this. We'll do just a little bit of review as we're dealing with our series on politics and the Bible. And we are looking at today economics specifically in the Bible. So all our teens are gone. So now you guys got to start reading again, okay? So I need a couple of volunteers just to kind of review some verses that we've talked about. But who would like to read for me? All right, I need a couple of readers. All right, Roger, I'm going to have you read Matthew 22, verses 17 and 21. I saw Ben. I'm going to have you read Romans 13, verse 6 and 7 in a moment. This is just review. We're talking about taxes today, all right? So everybody's favorite topic, taxes. And so, does the government have right to collect taxes? I know some Christians that have gone to jail because they said, no, government doesn't have right to collect taxes. But turns out they do, and they're in jail because they didn't pay them, okay? But anyhow, go ahead. Read Matthew 22, verse 17, then 21.
Tell us, therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not? They say unto him, Caesar's. Then saith he unto them, Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's.
All right, so the key there is you render unto Caesar, that's government, the Roman Empire. Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Render unto God the things that are God. Verse 17 talks about tribute, which is taxes. And Jesus says, yeah, pay your taxes, okay? And then we see Romans 13, verse 6 and 7.
For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their dues. Tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to him custom, fear to whom fear, honor to him honor.
Okay, so now again you have tribute, that's taxes. And he says, for this cause pay ye tribute also. All right, so pay taxes. Why? Because government are the ministers of God. And we say, well, I don't think our government's a very good minister. Fair enough. God will deal with them. But nonetheless, they are according to the Word of God. And so our taxes. Now, as we've gone through this, we've looked at a couple of things about taxes and what the Bible has to say about it. And of course, government is supposed to, one of the roles of government, according to Romans 13 earlier in the chapter, is that they are to do good to a nation and to reward those that do good and to punish those that do evil. So the question when it comes to taxes is, well, should they be high or low? What does the Bible have to say? And the Bible really doesn't really say much as far as what the tax rate would be. But what we do know is that if taxes are zero, government has nothing. If taxes are 100%, then you have no freedom and you live in a totalitarian society or a communistic society. You have no freedom. And so the goal should be somewhere in the middle. And so there is a benefit to lower taxes. Lower taxes actually, and there's a whole scale out there, but lower taxes tend to actually produce more money for the government because it stimulates the economy, which means people are making more money, so they're paying a lower tax rate, but they are paying more taxes because they're making more money. And lower tax rates tend to help that. And there's a thing called the Laffer curve, which demonstrates that. Now, we talked about taxes on corporations. You know, say, oh, man, why do we got to pay tax? Tax the rich, tax the corporations. Fine, you can do that. Our government does, but there's a thing that we must consider. Do you think for a moment that those corporations are going to lose money? No, they're not. So who's going to pay the increase in taxes? You are on the increase of goods that you buy. See, all they do is just raise the prices. Anybody notice that materials have gone up? You know, cost of things has gone up. Anybody notice that? Yeah. Yeah, that's there's a couple of different reasons for that. All your stimulus money you're excited about, that's part of it. It's just creating more money. They're not. When stimulus money is literally just money that's printed and added into the economy. So what it does is it causes inflation because there's more money available, and so the cost of goods goes up. And so that's what the stimulus money does. And so it's like, oh, yay, yippee, I got all this money, and then everything goes up. So, oh, I don't have any money. And, that's what happens here. So, anyhow, right now the corporations in the past have been taxed over 40%, 35% by the government. The state of Massachusetts does 8%. Right now the government's only taxing them at 21%. That will probably go up because that was dropped under President Trump. And so that's a factor in why the economy was doing well prior to COVID, was the fact there was low taxes on corporations, which didn't didn't make the cost of goods go up. There's capital gains tax, basically is kind of an unbiblical tax. It doesn't affect most of us really, but basically it taxes you for being smart and doing well. And that's totally the opposite of what the government's supposed to do. It's supposed to reward you for doing good. And because you make wise investments, now you have to pay taxes. And so that's not really fair. It doesn't affect most of us. We began talking about income tax. And this is the one that most of us are familiar with. And we talked about that there are different types of taxes in the Bible. One of the things, and it's totally different in the Old Testament, really in the Old Testament in particular, the nation of Israel was what we would call a theocracy. And a theocracy is basically when the church is, and I use church in a general sense, but the religion is the government, all right? They're one and the same. And so the government was the priesthood, all right, of Judaism. And so they collected taxes. So there were a couple different types of taxes. There was what you would call that we know as the tithe, which was 10%. Then there was so that is a flat tax, and so basically you paid 10%. In Deuteronomy and Leviticus, we looked at verses that talk about all this. The United States does what's called a progressive tax rate. And so it starts off, the lowest tax rate is about 10%, and it can go as high as, I believe, 37% if you make more money. And so the more money you make, the more taxes that you pay, and that is not a biblical model. And The United States can do whatever it wants. It doesn't have to follow the Bible. I'm just telling you what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches a flat tax. It also teaches a head tax, which is a tax per individual. There also is some exceptions in there for very poor to make some concessions on what they give. We talked about that, isn't it fair for the rich to pay a higher percentage? And we're looking at it. Take your opinion and just put it out the window and just stick with what the Bible teaches, both in word and principle. And on what basis do we make it fair? Do we say that it's fair for the rich to pay more taxes? On what basis? Because it's really subjective. You know how people form their opinions on what's best for them? That's how, I think, why do you think that? Because it's what's best for you. So, when you say, I think the rich should pay more taxes, well, you say that because you're not rich. If you were rich, do you think that they're going to say, yeah, I think the rich should pay more taxes? Most don't. All right? Most don't. And here's the thing, that it's all about perspective. Let's just take, and I used this example last week, but I'll give it again real quick. You can argue it either way. Let's say you use a flat tax rate, all right, and a guy makes $5,000 or $50,000, so he pays 10%. He pays $5,000, or let's say 20%. He pays $10,000. Now the guy makes $500,000. He pays. He's going to pay. What would that be? $100,000. All right. So $100,000. Now, the guy who pays $10,000 says, why I got to pay $10,000, man? I only have $4,000 to live with. That guy who makes $500,000, he should pay $410,000 in taxes and cover my taxes. And somebody before is like, yeah, I see that, yeah. Because, man, you don't have hardly anything to live on, so he should pay that. He's got all that money. Then the guy who's rich is saying, wait a minute. I get the same services that guy gets. He pays $10,000, I pay $100,000 and get the exact same services. Why should I have to pay $100,000 for the same services that guy pays $10,000 for? You see how they both have a good argument? Both have arguments. So where does their argument come? Where does their opinion come from? Their perspective. And friends, in life, a lot of times our opinion comes from our perspective. Now, what does the Bible say? Well, nowhere in the Bible do we find that it is okay to take somebody else's money and give it to somebody else. That's what we call stealing. Thou shalt not steal. When you take person A's money, it doesn't matter what you do with it, you've stolen it. And if you give it to them, it's all it is. That's what the Bible calls stealing. Now, no one has the right to steal. Not you, not me, not the government. If I walked into a billionaire's home and he had some cash on the table, let's call it $100. And I say to myself, he's a billionaire. He doesn't need that. I'll just take it. What have I done? I have stolen. Does the rationale, well, he doesn't need it, he's got plenty of money, matter? No. So let me ask a question. If the government decides that it's okay for him to take, that they can take $100 from him and give it to me because he doesn't need it, how is that any different? It's not. It's stealing. And we shouldn't encourage stealing. It is good for everybody in a society to pay some income tax. You say, why? Well, if you're investing in something, then you care how it's run. You know what the problem is? And we talked about this last week, but 47% of our nation pays no income tax. Not 1 cent. 47%. That means almost half of the United States population does not pay income tax. So when the government's spending all this money, and at the end of the year you get all the money, you paid it, but you get it all back, all right? Do you really care? No, you don't care. Why? You're getting it all back. Doesn't matter. You only care when you're the 53% that are actually getting charged. So who's paying taxes then? Well, the top 50% of wage earners in the United States pay 97% of all the taxes. The top 1% of wage earners pay 38.5% of income tax. It used to be 40, but back in the 90s it was only 25%. The income tax accounts for 70% of the federal revenue, excluding Social Security and Medicare. So the top 1% of our nation's wealth pay a third of all the government's income. Now, what this means is this: a large portion, and here's what you say, what's the problem with all this? Here's the problem, all right? Most of the people who are voting, a majority of the voters aren't paying taxes. Are they ever going to vote in somebody who will make them pay taxes? No. So now the burden of funding the nation ever increasingly falls on a greater and greater minority. Because more I want to get out of it, I want to get out of it, I want to get out of it. And you keep voting for people who know, oh, if I just say no taxes, you're going to get... And you start, and you know what happens to that elite? They're the ones who make the economy run, by the way. They say, what's the point? We're just going to pay more. And they stop trying. And it kills our economy. We talked about there's really no biblical justification for this system. We talked about how each person deserves, and let me get a couple of readers. Let's see, I need 1, 2, can I get 3 readers? Rosemary, Luke 10, verse 7. Steve, 1 Corinthians 3:8. Give me one more. Oh, you guys are such out of practice. Beth Ann, thank you so much, man. I am going to have to retrain all those teens have messed us up, all right? They have messed us up. They were reading left and right all the time, and us adults said, well, we'll let the young ones do it, and now we're out of the habit, all right? Beth Ann, Luke 19, verse 13, all right? So go ahead, read Luke 10:7.
As they give, for the laborer is worthy of his hire, though not from house to house.
Okay, so the laborer is worthy of his hire. In other words, you have what you earn. Each person deserves what they legally earned that year. You earn it, you deserve it. I don't care how much it is. You worked for that, you got it. This is a biblical principle. 1 Corinthians 3:8, go ahead.
Now he that planteth and he that watereth are one, and every man shall receive his own reward according to his own labor.
All right, so God rewards according to our labor. The eternal reward in heaven, He's not going to take from somebody else and give it to He's going to reward you as you have worked. Luke 19, verse 13.
And he called his 10 servants and delivered them 10 pounds and said unto them, Occupy till I come.
All right, now, and this is a lengthy passage I'm not going to read today, but basically in this parable of the 10 servants, he rewards them for the work that they did. Now, this basically, so what does a person deserve? Biblically speaking, they deserve what they legally earn in a fair manner. Now, the economy as a whole is benefited with lower tax. I know this is going to, people will be like, what? The economy benefits from lower taxes on the elite rich. You say, wait a minute, why? And when I say lower taxes, it's not that they're paying less taxes than you. Just remember, they're being taxed at 37% of their income, and most of us aren't even paying income tax, okay? So the economy is benefited by them having lower taxes because they do, with that savings, they do one of 3 things. They either save it, which means they're investing in it, which means, and this is not chump change, this is big money. So when they are investing money, that means banks have more money that they can lend out, which means that you can borrow more. and it's not as stringent on you. And so there's investing, then they can spend it. If they spend it, that's money into the economy, and they can also give it away. And they do. They make very generous offerings when they have excess money. And so each of these things help the economy. We covered it all before. Now, that was all review to get to where we're at today. Some say, well, aren't the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer? We hear that. And the answer is no. No, the people use this to support, they use this idea to support higher taxes on the rich is because the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and therefore we should tax the rich to make life more fair for everybody, but there are several problems with the idea. First off, the poor are not getting poorer. In the year 1800, 80% of the world's population lived in absolute poverty. Today, that number is only 10%. In the United States, there's nobody living in that type of absolute third world poverty. And under 10% of our population is living in poverty. Many people here are actually have started to become wealthier. There's a thing, you can go online, but there's a thing called quintiles, and there's 5 of them, all right? And these are basically like brackets of income, all right? And you fall into one of these 5 brackets of income. And studies over decades show movement within these quintiles, these sections of income. And those that start in the lowest quintile, all right, so they have very low income. You know that 98% of those people don't stay there? They get out. Has anybody, when you started out in your career, it was tough. You didn't have a lot, but you worked. And you stayed at your job, and you got training, and now you got a pay raise because you did a good job. And can anybody remember, it's tough when you're first starting out, but after you do things for a while, you have a little bit more to work with, don't you? Yeah, you moved up. 98% of the people that start in the lowest income bracket move up. That second income bracket, you know what? 78% of them go to the third. Of the people that get to that third bracket, 58 of them move up to the fourth. We also see that those in the highest bracket, 31% of them don't stay there. They drop down. And in that second highest bracket, 24% of them will drop to the third. There's movement. So these don't indicate that the rich are getting rich and the poor are getting... You know what happens? If you make smart choices and work hard, you're going to be okay. If you don't blow your money on stupid things, you're going to be all right. You want to know people that have money problems? You know what their biggest problem? It's in the mirror. That's their biggest problem. Their lack of work ethic or their poor expenses. It's amazing. Particularly younger people make such stupid decisions. I hope I don't offend anybody right now, but I might. But we all know people have done this. It's just they get their license, and then they go out and buy not a used car, but a brand new car, all right? And that they don't know how to drive, and they ruin it with, all right? And they total it in a year, and they destroy themselves financially before they even get started. Nowadays, you've got to be really careful with your kids going to college. All right? The investment versus reward is dicey. You got to be smart about it. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying be smart about it. I was just talking with an electrician yesterday. His whole training to be an electrician. And once you put in your dues and you get out on your own, you can make $100,000. You know what his financial investment in his training is? And granted, you're not making a lot of money in the beginning, but you're you're going to school and you're working while you're going to school, his investment was $4,500. The whole train, $4,500. That about pay for one class at some places. All right? Now, look, I understand that. I'm just saying you got to be smart about it. All right? You got to be smart about how you spend your money. And I mean, I remember when I went to Plymouth State, there was this, I don't know how it happened, but there was this person from Harvard there. And I don't remember, I think it was just this girl, I was talking to her, and I'm like, come on, just admit it. All you're paying for is the name. Because you can't tell me that English at Harvard's any harder than it is here. And she's like, no, it's not. English is English. Math is math. All you're paying for is the prestige. All right? There may be some, I get it, like medical and, doctors, and I get that, all right? Lawyers to a certain extent. Even then, you can do that cheaper, okay? So all you're doing is praying for prestige. And so we got to be careful that our kids don't get in $100,000 debt and then have to live at home because they can't find a job, which happens. All right? We know people like that, don't we? So you need to be careful about that you don't set them up, to be that. Anyhow, that's kind of off topic. Now, let's talk about, there's another thing, another type of tax. We're just talking about all the different types of taxes. It's so exciting. There's what's called a state tax, and this is a tax on a state when someone dies. Again, this probably doesn't affect most of us because of what are called exclusion limits. But last year, the estate tax had to be more than $11.58 million. All right, so if your estate was under $11.58 million, it doesn't affect you. But if it was 11.59, well, then you paid 40% tax rate. That just seems wrong. In Massachusetts, there's also a state tax rate. And so this does affect people because if your estate is worth more than $1 million, which, man, my word, people's houses right now, look, I'm just saying that, it's not hard to have an estate over $1 million if you own your own home and it's paid off. You understand that. You understand there are older people that bought their home for pennies and just never moved. And, they have these homes that are worth unbelievable money. Particularly if they lived closer to the city and had a multifamily, and they just lived in one unit and lived a very simple life, and next thing you know, that multi-unit's worth $1 million. And they bought it for $16,000 50 years ago. All right? That literally happens. And so this can affect people, and your tax rate is going to be anywhere from 0 to 16%, just depending on the particulars. But the ethical question we got to ask here is, should a person's property be taxed when they die? Shouldn't a person be allowed to leave their money to whom they want? This person was productive and paid income tax on his earnings. Why should he be taxed again on the same money? It's a double tax that they get you after you're done. Very unethical. Economists argue that this tax has a strong disincentive to small businesses. Here's what happens. If a man builds his business and makes it profitable, and then he dies, well, who gets 40% of that business? Government. It's wrong. It's almost impossible, unless they incorporate and get out of that private ownership, it's almost impossible for children sometimes to carry it on because they lose so much of what was built up. I mean, imagine if your dad had a business that's worth $12 million and you inherit it and you just lost $4 million. Or whatever that 40% would be. It would be maybe more. A lot of these companies don't survive. And everybody notice the mom and pop stores have just, and there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not just this. But anyhow. Now, some have suggested what's called a fair tax, which basically would do away with all income tax or capital gains, Social Security, Medicare, all that, and replace it with the national sales tax of around 30%. People object this for several reasons, because first off, that's a huge sales tax. It's a new kind of tax, create a greater burden on the poor because everything that they need would be taxed, and charitable organizations also oppose this because they would lose write-offs, a lot of write-offs if you got rid of. Think about it. If all you had is the sales tax, then you lose all the way you can deduct income. It doesn't matter anymore, and so a lot of charitable organizations don't like that. So, I want to talk about lastly on this topic. I want to talk about the Bible's teaching on inheritance. All right, the Bible's teaching on inheritance. So I am going to need some readers here, and so this is an opportunity for us to show that we are learning and we are getting out of that old mold of not reading. And so I need people to read. And Steve, good job. I like that. All right, Proverbs 13, verse 22. Kim, did you raise your hand? Okay, Proverbs 19, verse 4. And can I get, let's see here. I need one more, maybe two more. Rosemary, I'm going to have you do Numbers 27, verses 8 through 11. And Cheryl, I saw your hand, Ezekiel 46, verse 18. All right, so that's, I think, all I got for right now. Yeah, that will be good with that. But so, what we want to look at here is the Bible's teaching on inheritance. In the Bible, giving of property and the possessions to children through inheritance was a normal practice. And so let's look here, Proverbs 13, verse 22.
Even an inheritance to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just.
All right, so a good man leaveth inheritance to his children's children. So that means that your kids, your grandkids, you're leaving something for them. Go ahead, Proverbs 19, verse 14.
Okay. House and riches are the inheritance of fathers, and a prudent wife is from the Lord.
All right, so here it's talking about inheritance of the fathers again. So Moses gave some specific directions regarding inheritance. Numbers 27, let's read verses 8 through 11.
And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a man die and have no son, then ye shall cause his inheritance to pass unto his daughter. And if he have no daughter, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his brethren. And if he has no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his father's brethren. 11.
Yes, please.
And if his father have no brethren, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his kinsman that is next to him of his family, and he shall possess it. And it shall be unto the children of Israel a statute of judgment, as the Lord commanded Moses.
All right, so now what we see here is that God gives some really specific instructions on this issue of inheritance. Now, we're in a different culture. We're not under the Mosaic Law. So typically, the way people do their inheritance is they just divide it up amongst their children. And that's perfectly fine, even though obviously here they left it to the elder son, who kind of became the head of the family. Different culture. And so he had responsibilities to make sure that everybody was taken care of, all right? But if there was no elder son, that would go to the daughter. And it goes right down the line of basically explaining where the inheritance of a person should go when he passes away. And so we see that God is very detailed on inheritance. What I would encourage each of you to do is to have a will that is specified so that, for several reasons, it's very beneficial to do this because it takes the decision-making out of people's hands. All right? It takes ideas and opinions out of people's hands. And honestly, I have seen so much fighting over the years over money. I mean, one of the things, I do funerals, usually 3-4 a year. And usually about once a year, I'll have one where I can see it. It's already starting. And I have had on more than one occasion had to take a few people, and I may not know them. They're not usually church people, but I'll sit a few people down and I'll be like, let me explain how this is going to go. this is going to be an honoring ceremony. And I'm going to honor the memory of your loved one. And you guys are going to knock it off. You're not going to fight and squabble. You could do that later. But while I'm here, this will not happen, or I'll walk. And you can explain to everybody why there's no minister. I'm not going to have fighting. I've had people fighting in the hospital over money when the person's still alive. I've had kids say, pull the plug. I want to get my money. Literally. I was in one meeting down in Boston. A lady visited the church one time and called me up and said, can you come to the hospital? My mom's dying and there's just some stuff. I walk into the meeting, the doctors are all there talking about the care, and this guy's like, just turn the machine off. And like literally, there's fighting in the room, and they're talking about money, and I'm not normally like this. I slammed the table and stood up. I said, how dare you talk about your mother in such manner? I drove an hour to get down here to pray with your family, and this is the selfish group of people I think I've ever seen. Shame on each one of you. You will not turn that machine off. We will let her go with decency, as she's not going to make it, and the doctors are making it very clear. We're not going to expedite this. We're going to treat her well, and we're going to meet here in 36 or 48 hours, and we'll see what happens then. Does everybody understand me? Never spoken like that before. God just came over and just did it. And everybody, the doctors were like, okay. The social worker was like, okay. Like everybody was like, fine. She died 24 hours later on her own. And I mitigated peace in that whole thing. I'm sure it was a mess after I was done. But I was like, there will be peace. There will be peace while I'm involved. And so it's shameful. So I'm not saying that would happen in your family. I would like to think it wouldn't. But, it only takes one. It just takes one to cause a problem. And guard against that. That's my advice. Now, give specific instructions of what your wishes are. And God did that in His Word. But here's the thing, though. In no instance, biblically, did any money or any of the inheritance go to the church or the government there. Now, look, by the way, if you want to leave something to your church, go right ahead, all right, man? The Catholics got this thing down, man. You give a little bit and you get a better place in heaven and so on. I had a distant relative that I guess I met as a baby, left me 1% of their inheritance, which ended up being $17,000, and that helped me to buy my first home. And the Catholic Church got 2%, and I thought, man, we got to get in on this thing, all right? So hey, just we don't want much, all right? Just to give 1%. No, I'm just kidding, all right? But we'll take it, all right? But anyhow, we see there's no instance of government taking any inheritance, regardless of the amount. It was always left to the descendants of the deceased, and if there were no descendants, it was left to his next of kin. In fact, Ezekiel prohibited a ruler from taking away the inheritance of the people. Ezekiel 46, verse 18. Go ahead. 46, verse 18.
I was at 36.
I might have, and if I did, I apologize. It's entirely possible.
That's around the corner.
No worries at all. We'll let you get there.
Moreover, the prince shall not take of the people's inheritance by oppression, to thrust them out of their possession, but he shall give his sons inheritance out of his own possession, that my people be not scattered his possession.
All right, so here we see that the prince shall not take the people's inheritance. That's government. Has biblically is commanded not to touch inheritance. So any type of inheritance or death or estate tax, and again, we're not going to change the system. I'm just trying to help you understand that certain taxes are biblical, certain are not. We have to submit to all of them, but God will hold people accountable. This type of tax, and I don't care if it's for, people that are rich. It's unbiblical. It's not right. Now, one argument in favor of the estate tax is that it prevents excessive amounts of wealth from accumulating in the hands of a few families. But again, who is to decide what is excessive? Are we to assume that wealthy people are more likely to misuse their money or to use it in a socially harmful and destructive manner? Look, if they use their money illegally, then the government will punish them. But if they don't use it in illegal ways, why should it be taken from them? Look, I'm not rich. I'm not. I'm just like most of you. But I don't think I'm entitled to anything that rich people have. They earned it. Or if it was given to them through inheritance, that's fine. It's not my money, it's in their family. And if I inherited a few $1 million from somebody, I'd be fine with that. I wouldn't have a problem with it. All right? Would any of you have a problem with it? No. We wouldn't be upset about it. Now, if you inherited it and then somebody else took it, you say, well, that's too much. You don't need that much. How would you feel about that? Hey, that's my dad's money. He worked hard for that. You know how, you see, your dad poor or your mom or whoever, man, they worked their whole life. And they work hard for everything they have, and then the government comes in and takes a portion of it because, well, that's too much. It's wrong. The other side of the argument is that estate tax simply is more power for the government. A good argument could be made that a more powerful, increasing wealthy government, because remember, they're just taking that money for themselves. It's not like they're giving it to the poor. That's just for the government. So the question about estate tax ultimately boils down to the matter of who owns property in a nation, individuals or the government. The Bible clearly takes the side of individual owners of property, and there should be no estate tax regardless. Now, I wanted to take just a couple minutes here, and we'll get into this briefly. I have some Bible verse, but it's more towards the end of the lesson. It's a very short lesson, so I don't know if we'll get there. But I'll just do a little introduction on this, and then we'll look at some other stuff. But we want to talk about next, and what does the Bible have to say about something like Social Security, all right? Social Security. Taxes for Social Security called FICA taxes. How many love that FICA, And, it's... All right, not my, and not accountants, but who knows what FICA stands for? Anybody? All right, now, Rosemary, do you know? Okay, that's okay. It stands for this, Federal Insurance Contribution Act, all right? 6.2% goes to the Social Security tax, 1.45 goes to the Medicare, that's a total of 7.65. Then your employer matches that for 15.3%. No Social Security tax is collected over $142,800 this year. It was a little bit lower last year. Medicare is collected for all income. This was started in 1935. Only 2%. It only collected 2% of your income when it was started, not 15.3. 2%. It now collects, 2% now collects, Social Security now collects 12.4%. Social Security started off at 2%. The growth came because Congress started giving away more money. And in the beginning, a lot of people were paying in and very few were receiving benefits. In 1930, when it was started, only 6% of the population was over 65. Over the next 3 decades, Social Security had huge surpluses, so it increased its benefit amount. However, from 2010 to 2030, things really begin to change. The population in the United States of 65 or older will grow from 35 million as it was in 2000, and it's estimated in 2030 to